Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Outgrow's Marketer of the Month. I'm your host, Dr. Sakshan Sharda. I'm the creative director at outgrow.co. And for this month, we have a special series of Freelancer of the Month for which we're going to interview Joe Dejene, who is a paid traffic growth consultant. Thanks for joining us, Joe.
Thanks for having me.
So, Joe, we're going to start with a rapid fire round just to break the ice. You get 3 passes. In case you don't want to answer a question, you can just say pass, but try to keep your answers to one word or one sentence only, okay?
All right, let's do it. It's Monday morning. Let's get it going.
What is the weirdest thing you've ever eaten?
The weirdest thing I've ever eaten, I was in the Brazilian Amazon, and they look like these big nuts, and you can chop them open with a machete. And when you open it up, there's a larva inside, and you can eat the
Wow.
larva, and it explodes in your mouth. And for whatever reason, it tastes just like a coconut, like the inside of a
Wow.
coconut.
Wow.
So that one's up there. Chicken
Wow.
intestines were another weird one too. It's got a funky
Okay.
aftertaste.
Describe yourself in 5 words.
Adventurous, novelty-seeking, ambitious, reliable.
4 is enough, and the 5th one would be
Novelty-seeking
very.
is isolated. That counts as one word. I counted it as 2.
Okay. What was the most recent thing that made you cry?
The animated movie Your Name, which is probably targeted toward teenage girls. This is getting personal way faster than I thought it
would. What are the books, movies, or games that never get old and always make you feel better when you get down? You can name one.
Oh, so many. Let's say Chrono Trigger, Super Nintendo game. I'm dating myself here a little bit.
Mm-hmm. How good are you at jujitsu out of a scale of 1 to 10? 10 being the most good.
2.5. I've been doing it for a year and a half.
Okay. What is the most trivial thing about which you have a strong opinion?
The most trivial thing that I have a strong opinion about. Oh, wow. That's a hard one to do rapid fire. Well, I mean, I've been intentionally trying not to, but I would say any type of like late fee or any small fine, whenever there's just some small fine attached to anything, it always gets under my skin, especially when companies are like, that will be an extra this much when you've agreed to pay so much. It'll be $500, but there's a $2.50 handling.
Okay. If you could be any mythical creature, what would you be?
Oh, I'm a chimera for sure.
Why?
Oh, because I can come at it from different angles, take different forms. You see me from one side, I look like a lion. From the other side, like a
snake.
eagle. I don't want to say snake. Like a.
Would your 12-year-old self think you were cool?
No.
Would you ever skydive?
I have skydiving. Gone skydiving, however you say that. I have. It's been a long time though, and I would again. Strangely, it's been 13 years and I haven't done it.
Have you ever walked out of a movie theater mid-show?
Many times. Look at Hollywood.
Name one of the movies you walked out of.
The latest James Bond movie. It was absolutely terrible. They should just not even call it 007 anymore. I mean, Hollywood's pretty much done.
Yeah. Okay. And the last rapid fire question: what's the best compliment you've ever gotten?
Oh, wow. The best compliment I've ever gotten. Well, I'll bring this back to business as we're leaving rapid fire. But some clients I've worked with have told me, like, you've really changed the trajectory of our business. And we were much less optimistic about the future when we first engaged with you compared to where we're at now. So keep it professional, and that's happened a couple times, and that one really stands out. Those compliments really stand out to me.
All right. I guess you didn't answer the rapid fire with one word or one sentence, but we're going to forgive that. Let's go into the longer questions. Is increasing LTV easier and more scalable than focusing on decreasing customer acquisition costs?
Let me give you the consultant's perfect answer. It depends. Most of the time, it depends. I mean, look, if I'm engaging a brand and if they don't have a customer win back flow, for example, uh, then you can literally write two emails that will increase LTV. Um, but I would say most of the time, probably 6 or 7 out of 10 times, it's easier to bring down customer acquisition costs. That's what we really focus in. We do help clients with LTV, but where our specialty is really is lowering CAC. And so that's what we do. And I believe that to be the leverage point for the majority of people selling physical and digital products through search and through social. So yes, with some caveats.
hmm And so then to relate this to one of your clients, what did it take to scale Breed Sense from 75,800 MRR to 158,900 monthly recurring revenue while maintaining a profitable CAC in a highly competitive business like the e-com health industry?
Yeah, great. All right, great notes. So a few things went into that, and it actually was initially minimizing. When we engaged with them, they had previously been working with some large agencies that I won't name, but there's a dirty secret of anyone who's working with a really large agency, is that usually you get a U.S. based or like U.S. UK developed world based salesperson and maybe account manager. And what I hear a lot from clients is like the sales process, the onboarding process is really great. It's detailed, but uh, a normal marketing agency, you have three layers. You have the people actually doing the work. You have the middle managers, and then you have the C level. The founder and the C level people. Depending on the size, it may be just a founder at C level and directors under him. And that is going to run usually like a 25 to 40% margin. Some agencies do have larger margins, but they're usually very specialized. And so the dirty secret in that is, well, if you're a relatively small margin, how do you operate like that? How do you operate on small margin? And one of the ways that a lot of large agencies do that is by hiring talent in developing countries, specifically the people who have their hands on the controls of their clients' ad accounts. Are often being hired from like Pakistan, India, sometimes Philippines, um, and so whenever I'm engaging an account, doing an audit for a client, usually if I'm engaging someone, I'll say, let me look and see what you're doing. What I see frequently is just a lot of like a very shotgun approach, like taking a handful of spaghetti and throwing it against the wall and seeing what sticks. And there's some merit to that approach, but usually there's not much rhyme or reason or like a clear process because they don't have a media buyer necessarily with the most experience who's actually making the changes in the account. They have someone who looks at the account like maybe once a week, maybe twice a month, who has the experience, and that person is directing a VA to do the actual work. So tying that back to your question, whenever I'm engaging someone who has worked with a large agency previously, I would say nearly every time there are a lot of audiences that have been tested at some time, a lot of creatives and ad copy that have been tested at some time. Often the creatives are good quality, or at least they look professional, they're on brand. But the way that the ad account is structured is, I would say, in my opinion, a mess like 90% of the time. They're not doing single variable testing. They're not isolating one variable to test. They're not optimizing for the best ad creatives. They're not trying like the best ad text with the best ad creative with the best audience. And so in the case of Sands, what we did was we just boiled down to like what are your absolute best assets. So we found one audience that has about a 20% lower CPM, cost per impression, than nearly all the rest that we tested. So if you're 20% lower cost per impression, and everything else is equal, which it was because we checked their funnel metrics, then essentially by using just that one audience, assuming that it's big enough, and we use large interest-based audiences, if not broad, in Facebook, then you can just lower your CAC by 20% by using that one audience, given that it's big enough to support $1,000 plus per day. Finding those is actually the easy part of our process, so I don't mind giving that away. So boiling down to one audience, what is the best audience that we can run all of our ads to optimize our really cost per click and cost per impression. But in the end, at the end of the funnel, that ends up being your CAC. And then we just continued that for other assets. So we found like the one creative that works the absolute best, one piece of ad copy that works the absolute best, did some testing and single variable testing because we had a bunch of assets, a bunch of creatives, a bunch of ad copy, but they weren't organized in any way. The agency, I guess, doesn't have like a clear like phase 1, 2, 3, or like we use 4 phases in media buying, but you need at least 3 to test. So we went through, we found what had worked best for them in terms of cost per click and boiled down to that. And we were able to get really good results right away. This was in the health space. So we did ride the Omicron wave early this year. Like we had like ridiculously good. I think our MER overall was between a 6 and a 7 early on this year. And the Omicron wave definitely helped that. So just simplify is the answer for my long-winded explanation. And then to go beyond that, simplifying can take a brand usually to creative testing, a little bit of audience testing, and some ad copy testing, with a heavy focus on creative testing. Oh man, and that's a whole other thing we could talk about, how we do creative testing. It's very detailed, and I don't see many agencies testing creatives the way that we do. But identifying the winners, simplifying the ad account, and then optimizing those creatives that do work really well with the audience that works really well. So if you have I'll do low cost traffic testing to find like, okay, so this ad is written from the angle of, in this case, air purifiers. We're going to say this ad is written from the angle of removing dust from your home. So how can we look at other angles or what are the other angles that people want? Well, people with respiratory conditions like asthma and allergies, they obviously want to be breathing clean air. People with pets, maybe there's allergies there, or maybe they just don't want to have to clean up pet hair every other day. They're going to want cleaner air. People who live in areas that are affected by wildfires, especially this time of year because it's summer. We're recording this in late June, so like summer's beginning. Affected by wildfire, they don't want to be breathing in smoke for several months a year. So we find the angles, and we do that through reading reviews and just literally quantifying what are people really happy about, and what are people telling us they're happy about with their purchase, and then working those angles into the ads. So again, if our one best ad is around dusting, we're going to find like, okay, so other angles like asthma, allergies, not having to clean up as much after your pets, and smoke. We're going to write ads that are almost identical to the dusting ad, but with a single variable of changing that angle. So instead of saying tired of dusting, we're going to say get the animal out of your air. One of our taglines. Is a social proof.
Get the animal out of the air?
Get your animal out of the air.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So your dog or cat is in the air and get it out. Anything related to respiratory conditions. Now, we don't want to make claims about health because this product makes people it improves air, but we're not going to say cure your allergies because that's definitely not okay by pretty much GDPR standards or even Facebook's rules. So a testimonial of someone saying that their allergies were relieved, that their asthma was relieved within a week of using the product is the angle that we'll use in this ad. So that's our process. Now, you asked me a question and I just expanded on it for maybe like 5-10 minutes there. And I would say that's what it takes to be competitive and really scale a business, uh, e-commerce or digital product through social, because cheap traffic is gone, and you really need to know your customer. You really need to understand why they like your product, what they like about it, and put that front and center, and test different angles, test various creatives, optimizing your best creatives that you've tested, and always be testing. I recommend like usually 20% of your budget is good for creative testing. Probably pull my accounts. It probably ranges from like 15 to 40 across all the accounts we manage. And it changes because we'll run a test for a few days and turn it off. But you always need to be testing ballpark 20% of your budget in ad copy and creative testing, testing new angles, finding what people like about your product, researching, gathering customer feedback, and using that to sell your product. Because, we used to get really cheap clicks, 20 cent, 30 cent clicks, 50 cent clicks on Facebook, and that's gone. CPMs used to be under $10 all the time. That's gone. So I find that when brands are wanting to grow, it really takes a deeper understanding of who your customer is, what they like about you, and then just finding what your mass market angle is, or angles. There's probably more than one, and then what creative demands attention. We use custom metrics to literally see what makes people stop and look for 3 seconds. How do we capture people's attention first, and then how do we make them convert beyond that? So very granular, very leaning heavily into creative. I came into the business as an analytical marketer, and have really worked on my creative skills and hired and partnered with creatives to help our service in the creative side. But I still use the analytical side to say, like, this 3 second animation stops twice as many people as this other 3 second animation at the beginning of our video ads. So you
And
asked me
what
a good
kind of
question, so I gave you a big answer.
that's all right. I wanted to expand on that. And what kind of relationship do you tend to build with your clients? Because we have it on good authority that you believe that most marketing firms do not regard their clients as actual partners.
Yeah, and I should avoid the C word, because it's a client sounds like someone who's emailing me with a question that I don't want to take the time to answer. Really, partner. So when I'm approaching it, and what I tell my team, my media buyers and creatives is, how would you manage this account? How would you write this ad if this was your business? This is why brands come up and then maybe get sold to a holding company, and then some 17-year-old dropshipping kid makes a slightly different product but is a better marketer and puts that company that was sold to a holding company out of business because they're coming up. Is the simple framework is, how would I treat this if I owned the business? If I was responsible for this $1,500 per day we're spending on this ad account, how would I spend that? If this was my business, would I be increasing the spend? Would I be decreasing the spend? Because there's a time to do each. And that's the one framework that I would recommend, the simplest framework. If I owned 100% of this business, how would I treat it? How quickly would I respond to my suppliers, my other service providers? What would I do in terms of ad spend? How would I structure the ad account? That's the one thing. And I kind of talked about what my experience is with talking to partners who have previously engaged with larger agencies before, and so that's what I see. I previously worked at large agencies, and I will say the agencies I worked at, I thought they did a very good job of really understanding clients' needs. I worked at a couple of agencies that I think did a very good job of understanding, but I don't think they were the norm. So I'm fortunate to have worked where I did, but I think those are the exception to the rule, and most large agencies are they'll put up a good presentation. Their proposal looks a lot better than mine because we're a small boutique team, but the quality of work, I mean, I've seen it over and over again. In fact, I woke up to a message today from a prospect in Australia, so they're ahead, and they said, "Hey, we want to get started right away." So they had been working with a large agency. So I just see this. Yeah, I see it time and time again. It's large agencies. They're looking at it. This client is 1% of our revenue, 0.5% of our revenue. We're going to give 0.5% of our resources to it.
And has there ever been a client relationship where you have had to put out the fire that's happening in that organization? We're asking this question because apparently you used to be a former firefighter. So I'm going to organizational fire. What is it? Also, tell us about the literal last fire you put out as a firefighter.
The literal last fire I put out? Literal?
Yes. Yes.
So I was an industrial firefighter. I studied environmental sciences and got a job as an environmental engineer. I worked in a big plastic factory, the largest polypropylene factory in the world, actually, in Houston, Texas. And fortunately, we did not have any fires on site, but we went to training grounds. So the last literal fire I put out, we were at the training facility at Texas A&M. It's like one of the best in the U.S., if not the entire world, to train firefighting. And this was industrial firefighting, so different from not so much structure fires or like going into buildings. That's a whole another level of danger. We did do some of that, but mostly like, hey, we have a chemical plant that has a highly flammable chemical, and there was a leak, and the leak ignited, so now it's spouting out fire. How do we contain that fire, and then plug the valve, close the valve? It was scenarios like that we were doing. Some of them complex. So those are usually teams of like 10 to 15 people that go about putting those out. It was at the Texas A&M training facility in terms of actual firefighting. And oh man, this is younger Joe. It must have been close to 10 years ago, 8 or 9 years ago. And then as far as you asked me about like putting out organizational fires.
Yes.
So it's usually actually a small thing. It's just maybe we've made like a small mistake. We're running several different products, and there's an error in the ad copy. Maybe I wrote it, and it can literally be something as small as a typo, or something that a client wants, like, hey, change the messaging a little bit. I wouldn't say any organizational. There's nothing organizational, especially with the brands that we work with. I'm not suggesting any organizational changes to them. That would be a big suggestion. But yeah,
The way you described it earlier, the way that a lot of these accounts were working with just throwing spaghetti on the wall, seems like they need to change something organizationally,
Oh, well, in that case, I'm just offering our services, our paid traffic services, in that case. So
okay.
that's I wouldn't consider that putting out a fire as restructuring their paid traffic accounts. That's not putting out a fire is something that you have to jump on and change right away. Like if there was a fire here in my place, I would have to say, give me a minute, I need to put this fire out. But changing the structure of a paid traffic account, usually looking at like a 1 week, maybe 2 weeks, maybe 10 days to do it. Could be done faster, but that's like you want to make sure you get it right. That's not something that we rush. We make sure we have a long onboarding process when we bring new partners on, so new brands. So we take our time and get a really good understanding. And like I said, if it's reading customer reviews, if it's going over the features that people care about, we're always understanding that before we're writing new ads. So that I would say that's not putting out fires. But putting out fires is, I have a small team here. We've kept it boutique, team of 4. So we kept it boutique so that I'm personally making like multiple touches on all of our client accounts each week, and so that way and because of that, putting out fires we definitely try to minimize. But yeah, sometimes we publish an ad maybe it's in the wrong placement. Maybe you publish a square ad that's showing up in stories. That can happen sometimes. It's literally just one click, and that's something that we address right away. So as far as putting out fires, but then as far as like taking over new accounts, that's a longer process. So it's not as quick as putting out a fire.
Mm-hmm. And speaking of the rising costs of advertising that you were talking about, so what are your opinions on organic content marketing being a cautious and steady method for long-term success? And is this something your team also works on or helps with? Or
So my team specifically, we have an agency partner that handles it. Is it necessary? Absolutely. Organic growth, and just like how I'm in a few masterminds that meet weekly and have Slack channels where we discuss how do we get customer acquisition as low as possible. That's what we specialize in, acquiring customers through paid traffic. How do we get that cost as low as possible? What are the channels? What are the methods to do that? And I have an agency partner who is the same with organic social. I think it's definitely necessary. One hand washes the other as well, because obviously paid traffic is just like putting a magnifying glass or maybe like turning a fire hydrant on to what's happening in your business without the foundations of like some organic following, some engagement on your organic accounts. It's certainly paid traffic is certainly not going to have the effect if there isn't that foundation. But it is also a long-term growth strategy to grow. For example, this is true for us if we're engaging a brand or for any other paid traffic agency. If we're engaging a brand that has, say, maybe 5,000 Instagram followers, and say they're fashion, apparel accessories is a niche where we've had success and we're managing some accounts. If they have 10,000 Instagram followers, okay, that's something we can work with, and we can get some, lower our CAC by engaging those followers with ads, using that as one of our warm audiences. But if we're engaging a brand that has 1.5 million Instagram followers, we're going to be able to put more spend into that warm traffic, get a lot more conversions quickly. We're probably going to be spending a lot more. That's most likely just a more mature brand. But that's someone who's invested in growing their organic. So organic and paid definitely is one hand washing the other. They work along well. And so we've partnered with an agency called Yellow Rock Agency. They do really great organic content. So we work on a few brands together with them. So I definitely think it's very important. And you need someone who really, really understands that. Like for us, we need to understand how to get CAC lower. So there's a creative aspect to that, and there's an analytical aspect to that. And with organic, I think it leans even more creative. The creative is very important in paid, but I think with organic, you really need to understand creative. And organic it's a marathon. So I know our partner produces tons and tons of images, posts, stories for their accounts. So it's definitely important to just be like always producing content. Where with paid, you may get lucky, and this does vary by channel. But say like Google, I wouldn't even say get lucky. You're usually not needing to, for like Google Display Network ads or Performance Max, which is obviously killing it for anyone listening who's involved. Google Performance Max is a very good way to acquire customers at a low cost. It just has a relatively low ceiling because you're limited by search volume, and Display Network will work. But in your Google Display Network, which is part of Performance Max, you're not needing to change out creatives too frequently. As with organic, you need to have new creatives ready to go daily, or at least several per week. So the demand for creative is really high with that. So you need like that creative process really, really ironed out on the organic side.
and whether it be paid or organic, what are your opinions on optimizing marketing strategy for purchases rather than leads?
So I would say choose one channel and one acquisition method. It can be paid early on, but you're going to want to target warmer traffic. So Google Performance Max is anyone who's wanting to, who's early, who's launched a brand recently, and you're wanting to get new customers through paid. Google Performance Max is most likely where you're going to get that because it's warmer traffic, whereas socials is like a is a pool. You're getting people's attention. You have a huge market, but you need to get your market's attention. Um, Even like a lower cost platform like TikTok, I would expect that any brand is going to need to spend $500 to $1,000 just to season their pixel with the TikTok pixel with higher funnel events above purchase. So, um, if anyone's done this and they think I'm wrong, good on you. But for the majority of brands, you're going to need to spend that 500 to 1,000 just to season your pixel with TikTok ads, and then you're going to need to do massive creative testing and swap out creative very frequently. And it's going to have to, everything is kind of based on trend because that's how people are engaging with content on that platform. Whereas Google Performance Max, you literally have like a square rectangular images of your logo and maybe one or two of your products, of your best selling products, and run those on Google Display Network and just some simple ad text to lower acquisition costs through Google Ads. Um, I got a little bit off topic there. Going back to your question,
You really are pitching Google Performance Max.
yeah. It's something that we've done more of, and the majority of our ad spend is still on Facebook. But yeah, like PMax is a good way to get started. Shopping as well, but shopping will be going away. I believe later this year. All shopping will be going away later towards the end of this year. Um, but uh, sorry, your original question was
Well,
how to
whether it was because we were talking about paid versus organic
yeah,
or paid and organic. So
yeah.
my question was, what are your opinions on optimizing marketing strategy for purchases rather than leads when it
Mm.
comes to both paid and organic, you know?
Find one paid channel that works, and it's the majority of brands will be PMax, and then get your systems in place for organic growth to grow steadily. Um, that would be it. Any brand who's able to get traction on Facebook, Instagram ads early on though is going to be able to grow very quickly. Um, so it's not the easiest place to acquire customers profitably, but if a brand early on is able to do it, say Google first and then begin the organic processes. Um, oh, and email is extremely important. Having a few email flows, it's I'll just give you the answers. It's welcome series and cart abandon. That's gonna count for the majority. It's not worth designing like a dozen different email flows. Design those to optimize them, test variations of them, and optimize 3-4 emails minimum each, and just find what works in those two flows. That's very big actually. That should be even before paid traffic, and then bring the Google traffic because that's lower funnel. Uh, Build up content through organic, and then go into Facebook. I would say that would be like the blueprint. And now I'm sure some brands have done those in different order or have started somewhere else. And brands have definitely launched with off of TikTok. TikTok, you could have grow an organic following pretty largely if you understand the platform because it's more heavily on organic. Possibly even Twitter, although Twitter D2C is not huge. I do think it's growing quite a bit. Um, but if you're trying to grow your accounts and you don't have a big organic following, that's the order that I would say most brands are going to want to follow in growing is getting email in place, Google paid traffic, organic your organic processes in place to steadily grow your organic accounts, and then Facebook, Instagram, paid traffic.
So the last question, what would you be doing if not this in your life right now?
Oh, what would I be doing if not this? Oh gosh. Um, I definitely have always enjoyed. I started when I literally started my career. I worked at a large oil company, and I realized very soon, like working for corporations is not where I want to be. So I would definitely be working with small to medium sized businesses. Um, and so, if not paid traffic, um, I would be wanting to provide a service. I would want to be providing something that I think is very valuable to small and medium sized businesses, whether it's help with oh gosh. what would it be? Probably help in the acquisition space, and I would say finance, because finance is a very large part of acquisition. Funny coming from an applied science major, but I would say finance likely in acquisitions, and definitely for small and medium businesses.
Okay. Well, thanks everyone for joining us for this special series of Freelancer of the Month. That was Joe Dejene, who is a paid traffic growth consultant. Thanks for joining us, Joe.
Cool. Can I plug? Can I plug my?
Check out his Upwork profile for more details, and we'll see you once again next month with another freelancer.
Not just my Upwork. Check me out on Twitter at Joe Dejene.
On Twitter.
On Twitter at JoeDejene. I haven't been on Twitter that long, but I am building content. By the time this comes out, I'll have more than I have now. And check out Duckweed Media on Instagram. A little bit of content there. Also duckweed.media. If you want to just see what we do and the problems we solve for our clients, how we help brands grow, duckweed.media will give you a great idea. Get in contact with us if you're looking to grow your brand, if you're serious about growth, if you're doing $500,000 or more in revenue. Usually our sweet spot is between $500,000 and $5 million in revenue to help brands grow and get from 6 to 7 or 7 to 8 figures in annual revenue.